The reluctant guardian Farah Nakamura's shoulders ached as she translated another trade negotiation for her Zexian captors. 3 years as a prisoner translator had taught her to mask her intelligence, keeping her face blank as the alien merchants haggled over rare minerals. Her dark hair, once lustrous, now hung limply around her gaunt face, though her amber eyes still burned with defiance. "Translate faster." "Human," hissed Grell, her Zexian supervisor, mandibles clicking in irritation. Farah nodded, continuing the tedious work of facilitating communication between the Zexian traders and the imposing Norellian delegation. The Norellians were known throughout the galaxy for their military might, tall, broad-shouldered beings with iridescent scaled skin that shifted colors with their emotions. One particular Norellian caught her attention. Taller than the others, with scales that shimmered between deep blue and purple. Unlike his companions, he watched her rather than the goods being traded. His 4 eyes, 2 large primary ones and 2 smaller secondary ones, tracked her movements with unsettling intensity. The female human, he suddenly interrupted in surprisingly fluent universal language. "Is she included in the trade offerings?" The Zexian merchant's antennae twitched with surprise. "Commander Davrock, this translator is merely a tool. We have more valuable commodities. Name your price," Davrock interrupted, scales flashing a decisive amber. Farah froze, heart pounding. Being sold again meant starting over, learning new masters, new rules. But the way the Norellian looked at her, not with the usual contempt or lust, but with something like curiosity? The transaction happened quickly. Before Farah could process what was occurring, she found herself following Commander Davrock through the spaceport, her meager possessions in a small pack. His towering form parted the crowds effortlessly. "You understand universal language perfectly?" Davrock stated, rather than asked as they approached his ship. "Why pretend otherwise?" Farah hesitated. "Survival," she finally answered. "They underestimate what they don't value." A rumbling sound emerged from Davrock's chest. Laughter, she realized with surprise. "Clever," he commented, leading her up the ramp of his personal vessel. Unlike the crowded Zexian traders, this ship was sleek and clearly military. "Your full name?" "Farah Nakamura." Davrock gestured to a small but clean cabin. "These are your quarters. You are not a prisoner here, though leaving is inadvisable, given we depart for deep space momentarily." Farah eyed him suspiciously. "If not a prisoner, then what am I?" Davrock's scales rippled thoughtfully. "A necessity. I need someone with your linguistic talents for a sensitive mission. And if I refuse, then I return you to the Zexians," he answered simply. Farah sank onto the bed. "Not much of a choice, more than you had this morning," Davrock pointed out. That night, after cleaning up in a real shower, luxury after years of rationed sanitation, Farah explored her quarters. The door wasn't locked. Cautiously, she ventured into the corridor, following sounds to the ship's galley. Davrock sat alone, reviewing holograms. He looked up as she entered, secondary eyes blinking rapidly, while his primary ones remained fixed on her. "Hungry?" Farah nodded, accepting the offered nutrient pack. As she ate, she studied him surreptitiously. Beneath his commanding presence was something unexpected, a weariness, perhaps even sadness. "Why me?" she finally asked. Davrock deactivated the hologram. "Because your eyes," he said quietly, "still hold defiance, despite years of captivity. That kind of resilience is rare, ... and precisely what this mission requires." His scale shifted to a deep indigo as their eyes met, and Farah felt a strange flutter in her chest, not fear, but something far more dangerous. Something that felt oddly like hope. Secrets in the void, 2 weeks aboard. Commander Davrock's vessel had taught Farah several surprising truths. First, despite his intimidating presence, Davrock treated his small crew with respect, even her. Second, contrary to Norellian reputation for militant precision, the ship often deviated from its charted course for unexplained detours. Third, and most puzzling, strange transmissions came at odd hours, followed by rendezvous with unmarked vessels. Tonight was no different. Farah awoke to the subtle shift in engine resonance that indicated they'd dropped from hyperspace. Slipping from her bed, she padded silently to the observation deck. Through the viewport, she watched as a battered transport approached, its hull scarred from weapon impacts. Curious as ever, Davrok's deep voice came from behind her. Farah turned, finding him closer than expected. His scales glimmered midnight blue in the starlight, almost beautiful. "These aren't military operations," she observed carefully. Davrak studied her, all four eyes unblinking. "No, smuggling." A rumble of amusement. Of a sort, the ship's loading bay opened. Instead of cargo, a group of bedraggled aliens emerged. Civilians of various species, many injured or emaciated. "Refugees," Farah whispered, understanding dawning. "You're smuggling refugees from conflict zones?" "The Norellian military officially maintains neutrality in regional conflicts," Davrak explained quietly. "Unofficially, some of us believe neutrality in the face of suffering is complicity." Farah looked at him with new eyes. "You risked purchasing me because... Because I needed someone who could translate multiple dialects without official documentation. Someone intelligent enough to understand discretion. Someone with reason to despise oppression." Warmth bloomed in her chest. "I'll help," she offered. That night began Farah's true work, speaking comfort to traumatized refugees in their native tongues, documenting their experiences, helping prepare them for integration at safe havens. Davrak worked alongside her, his gentleness with the injured belying his warrior exterior. 3 days later, alarms blared throughout the ship. Farah stumbled from her bunk as the vessel lurched violently. "Pirates," Davrak explained, appearing at her door. "Battle armor already secured. Remain here." Instead, Farah followed him to command, where chaos reigned. View screens showed 3 vessels surrounding them, sleek predatory ships designed for raiding. "They know we have refugees," Davrok's second in command reported grimly. Farah stepped forward. "I can help. I understand pirate trading codes. The Zexians used them." Davrok hesitated only briefly before nodding. Farah took the communications station, intercepting the pirates' transmissions. As she worked, weapon fire rocked the ship. A conduit exploded nearby, sending her sprawling. Strong arms caught her. Davrak, his scales now crimson with alarm. "Are you injured?" he demanded, for eyes scanning her intently. "I'm fine," she assured him, suddenly aware of his proximity. The strange heat of his scaled skin through her thin sleepwear. For a moment, time seemed suspended as they remained entangled. A second blast broke the moment. Returning to her task, Farah identified the pirate command codes, allowing Davrok's crew to jam their communications. In the ensuing confusion, they managed to escape into hyperspace. In the aftermath, tending to minor injuries in the medical bay, Davrok found her. "You disobeyed orders," he stated without anger. "Yes, and saved everyone aboard." He approached, reaching out tentatively to touch her hair, fascination in his gesture. "Humans are remarkably unpredictable," Farah smiled, catching his hand impulsively. "Thank you for what you're doing for these people." Davrok's scales rippled with an emotion she couldn't identify, his fingers carefully intertwining with hers. "Perhaps," he said softly, "we both found purpose in unlikely places." Unspoken trust, the medical bay hummed with quiet activity as Farah moved among the refugees. Translating symptoms and comforting those who'd been injured during the pirate attack, her ability to switch effortlessly between 7 alien languages had proven invaluable. Though she kept secret her growing comprehension of Norellian, a language outsiders rarely mastered. "Your stamina rivals our own," observed Nex, the ship's physician, her delicate tendrils waving appreciatively. "Most humans would have collapsed days ago." Farah smiled wearily. "Necessity makes us stronger than we think." "As does purpose," came Davrok's voice from the doorway. He'd been absent for hours, coordinating repairs. "May I borrow your translator, Nex?" Farah followed him through the ship's corridors, noticing new scorch marks from the battle. Despite her exhaustion, she found herself highly aware of Davrok's proximity, the rhythmic sound of his breathing, subtle shifts of color across his scales. They entered his private quarters, a space she'd never seen before. Unlike the utilitarian design throughout the vessel, here were personal touches, strange crystalline sculptures, a wall of ancient-looking texts, and a viewport positioned perfectly to watch the stars. "These are beautiful," Farah commented, examining the sculptures. "Remnants of my homeworld's ancient art," Davrock explained, his secondary eyes blinking rapidly, a sign of emotion she'd learned. "Before we became known only as warriors, there's always more beneath the surface," she observed quietly. Davrock moved closer, studying her face. "Indeed. Which brings me to why I brought you here." He activated a holographic display. "During the attack, our sensors detected something unusual about you." Farah tensed as biometric readings appeared her own. "Your cellular structure shows signs of adaptation to alien environments, specifically radiation tolerance far beyond human norms." Heart racing, Farah stepped back. "I don't understand. I believe you do." Davrock's voice remained gentle. "The Zexians didn't randomly capture you, did they?" The secret she'd guarded for years hung between them. Farah sank onto a nearby chair, suddenly lightheaded. "I was a xenobiologist," she admitted, researching cross-species genetic compatibility. When we discovered certain humans could adapt to alien environments through controlled exposure, she swallowed hard. "I volunteered. The project was classified, but someone sold information. The Zexians raided our facility." "They wanted your research," Davrock concluded. "They wanted me?" "A human who could potentially survive their toxic homeworld." Davrock knelt before her, bringing them face to face. "Why tell me this now?" "Because ... Her voice caught. "Because despite everything, I trust you." His scales shifted to a deep violet she'd never seen before. Slowly, with deliberate care, he reached up to trace the line of her jaw with scaled fingertips. Farah's breath hitched at the contact. "The Norellian High Command would consider you invaluable," he murmured. "A biological asset to be studied. Exploited, and you," she whispered. "I see a remarkable woman who deserves freedom, not captivity." His voice deepened. "That is why I must tell you my true mission. I am gathering evidence of rights violations against sentient beings, building a case for intervention in conflicts our government ignores." Farah covered his hand with her own. "Is that why you've risked everything for strangers?" "I was once a loyal soldier," Davrock confessed, "until I witnessed atrocities my conscience couldn't bear." In the dim light, with stars streaming past the viewport, the space between them seemed charged with unspoken feelings. Farah leaned forward, pressing her forehead gently against his, in a gesture she'd seen between Norellian comrades. "Then we're both rebels," she whispered. Davrock's arms encircled her, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence as she melted against him. The alienness of his form somehow felt right against hers, his scales warm and smooth beneath her fingertips. "This is unwise," he murmured against her hair. "Wisdom is overrated," Farah replied, tilting her face up to his. "Trust isn't." Their first kiss bridged worlds, hesitant exploration giving way to deeper connection. Differences forgotten in the discovery of unexpected harmony. Hearts without borders mourning found them entwined. Farah's head resting on Davrock's chest, listening to the unusual rhythm of his dual hearts. His scales had shifted to a peaceful azure in sleep, luminescent in the dim light of his quarters, gently tracing the patterns along his arm. She marveled at how quickly everything had changed. Davrock stirred, all four eyes opening simultaneously. "You're still here," he observed, voice rough with sleep. "Disappointed?" she teased. His scales rippled with amusement. Quite the contrary. He brushed her hair back with surprising tenderness, though this complicates matters considerably. Before she could respond, the ship's alert system activated. Davrock was instantly alert, reaching for the communication panel. "Report. Norellian military cruiser requesting immediate communication." "Commander," came the tense reply. They dressed hurriedly, professional masks slipping back into place. By the time they reached the bridge, the view screen displayed a stern-faced Norellian officer. "Commander Davrock," the officer began without preamble. Your mission parameters did not include extended detours. Explain your current course. Engine difficulties following pirate engagement, General Vostok, Davrock replied smoothly. We required minor repairs before proceeding. The general's scales flickered skeptically. And the unauthorized communication with unregistered vessels? Farah tensed, keeping carefully out of view. The refugees were hidden in shielded compartments, but discovery would mean imprisonment for everyone aboard. Intelligence gathering, Davrock countered. Border traders often possess valuable information regarding regional instabilities. A long, uncomfortable silence followed. Proceed directly to Norellian Outpost Sigma 9, Vostok finally ordered. No further deviations. I expect a full operational review upon arrival. The transmission ended abruptly. Suspects, Farah said quietly. Davrock's jaw tightened. Yes. We have 26 hours before reaching the outpost. We need to evacuate the refugees before then. The day passed in tense preparation. While the crew readied the refugees for emergency transfer to a sympathetic freighter, Farah and Davrock prepared documentation, evidence of atrocities committed against civilian populations, testimony from survivors, coordinates of mass graves. If Vostok discovers this, Farah noted, you'll face execution for treason. If the High Council sees it first, Davrock countered, there's a chance for official intervention and change. Late that night, alone in his quarters, Farah finally asked the question weighing on her mind. What happens after? To us? Davrock's scales darkened. There is no precedent for ... This Norellians and humans have never formed attachments. She supplied. Fallen in love, he corrected quietly, the admission hanging between them. Farah moved into his embrace, pressing her lips to the sensitive scales at his throat. Then we make our own precedent. His response was immediate, lifting her against him with an urgency that matched her own. Their second night together held none of the hesitation of the first, only the desperate awareness of limited time. His scales shifted through spectrums of color as they moved together, learning each other's bodies despite their differences. In the aftermath, breathing heavily, Farah traced the illuminated patterns across his chest. They're beautiful, she murmured, like living constellations. Davrock captured her hand, bringing it to his mouth in a distinctly human gesture. We have customs, he said slowly, bonding rituals between lifemates. Usually performed over months. Farah's heart quickened. Are you proposing? His scales flushed a bright, almost embarrassed purple. Proposing that we consider possibilities previously thought impossible. Farah smiled, kissing him deeply. I accepted impossible the moment I trusted you. Dawn brought solemn reality. As they approached the rendezvous coordinates, long-range sensors detected multiple vessels approaching. Military signatures, the tactical officer reported grimly. Davrock's scales paled. They're early. We've been betrayed. Defiance and devotion's separate protocols. Davrock ordered instantly, scales flashing urgent commands to his crew. Evacuation, priority 1. The bridge erupted into coordinated chaos as officers initiated emergency measures. Farah worked alongside them, transmitting encrypted warnings to their rendezvous vessel while helping prepare the refugees for immediate transfer. 5 Norellian cruisers approaching, reported the tactical officer. Weapons systems active. Davrock turned to Farah. Should go with the refugees. If you're captured, I'm staying, she interrupted firmly. We finish this together. No time for further argument. The first transport pods were already launching, carrying refugees toward the waiting freighter hiding in a nearby asteroid field. On the view screens, Norellian vessels moved to intercept. But Davrock's pilot executed a daring maneuver, positioning their ship between the cruisers and the escaping pods. Open communication channel, Davrock commanded. General Vostok's face appeared, scales crimson with fury. Surrender your vessel and prepare for boarding, traitor. I possess evidence of systematic rights violations against sentient beings, Davrock replied calmly. Evidence I've transmitted to every member of the High Council and major news networks throughout Allied systems. Vostok's expression faltered momentarily. You overstep your authority. These matters are beyond military jurisdiction. Justice recognizes no jurisdiction, Davrock interrupted, and neither does conscience. Weapons fire struck their shields, rocking the ship violently. Alarms blared as systems began failing. Shields at 30%, reported an officer. Farah worked frantically at her station, monitoring the refugees' escape. The last transport is away, she announced with relief. Davrock nodded grimly. Prepare for emergency jump. The ship shuddered as another blast hit home. Farah was thrown from her seat as conduits exploded across the bridge. Through smoke and chaos, she saw Davrock struggling to reach the navigation controls. Engines critical, came a desperate report. Jump sequence failing. In that moment of certain defeat, a new alert sounded. The tactical display showed multiple vessels dropping from hyperspace ships bearing the insignia of the Neuralian High Council itself. This is High Counselor. Trevane came an authoritative voice over the CUM system. All vessels stand down immediately. Commander Davrock's evidence has been received and authenticated. Stunned silence fell across the bridge. Farah made her way to Davrock, whose scales had paled with disbelief. We did it, she whispered. Taking his hand, the following days passed in a blur of debriefings, medical treatments, and political upheaval. Davrock testified before the High Council, presenting evidence of violations that could no longer be ignored. What began as a rogue mission became the catalyst for reform, new protections for refugees, investigation of military abuses, opening of previously closed borders. Through it all, Farah remained by his side, their relationship becoming both scandal and symbol. The first publicly acknowledged human-Aurelian pairing faced scrutiny from both species, but also ignited hope among those who dreamed of true integration. 1 month after their confrontation with Wastik, they stood together on the observation deck of a diplomatic vessel bound for Earth, the first official Neuralian delegation to seek formal alliance with humanity. Nervous? Farah asked, noting the rapid blinking of Davrock's secondary eyes. Terrified, he admitted. Your world has only known mine through conflict and distance. She smiled, taking his scaled hands in hers. They'll learn what I did, that appearances deceive, and connection is possible across any difference. Davrock's scales shifted to the deep violet that she now recognized as love. There is a Neuralian saying, stars separate by distance, unite by light. Poetic for warriors, she teased gently. We were poets before we were soldiers, he reminded her. Perhaps we can be again. As Earth appeared on the horizon, blue and beautiful, Davrock performed the final phase of the Neuralian bonding ritual, placing a crystalline pendant around her neck, its colors shifting in harmony with his scales. My colors will always find yours, he promised. The traditional vow carrying new meaning between species, Farah completed the ritual with the human gesture he'd come to cherish. Standing on tiptoe to kiss him, as stars and planets witnessed their unlikely union, a bridge between worlds once thought unbridgeable. Wherever we go, she whispered against his scales, we go together. The ship approached Earth's orbit, carrying not just diplomatic papers and political agreements, but living proof that differences could become strengths and boundaries could transform into beginnings.